Hello, as the title says, this is just real talk. Me just talking about a topic that I thought was squashed in this community, in the video game gamosphere, but it needs to be taken care of. What am I talking about? I'm talking about people who are masters of the obvious, and or either masters of the obvious, or um, they jump to a conclusion that tells part of the story, but not the whole, not the big picture. So without further ado, I'm going to talk about two topics that have been floating around in the gaming community, the gamosphere, um, after the cut. Okay then. There's been a couple of articles floating around, a couple of topics floating around in the gamosphere. Um, Focusing on some relatively negative news without looking at the big picture or without telling the entire story. I'm going to tackle the hardest one first because it needs to be said. And what is this topic that we're talking about? We're talking about Nintendo being not being the hardware forefront runner for the first time in 7 years. That's right, 7 years. Thanks to the power of the DS and the Game Boy Advanced, a little bit, and the Wii, Nintendo basically hardware sales-wise has been kicking everyone's ass. Up until this year when the PS4 launched, and that superseded it for this year. Yeah. Well, duh. Not to mention Nintendo had been killing everyone for 7 years straight, hardware sales-wise. So, some people are writing this as an alarming episode, but here's the thing. You can't be on top all the time. You're not, okay. Here in America, for my international viewers, we had an incident with Bernie Madoff. Bernie Madoff got in trouble for embezzlement and a pyramid scheme where basically he would take the money from everyone at the bottom of the pyramid, like little people paying in their money, pay dividends as a Wall Street banker, claiming that he'd invested these people's money in surefire investments in companies. The thing is that there's no such thing as a surefire investment, and even really powerful stock portfolios will have off days. That's just the nature of business. There is no 100% guarantee in business. There's always going to be risk. And frankly speaking, if you want to gain a big reward, you have to take a risk, okay? Now, so basically, Bernie Madoff did a pyramid scheme where basically he took money from the bottom of the bottom of the pyramid, the base, and paid the people at the top, claiming that they were getting dividends. Then when the people at the bottom would ask for their money, a return on their investment, because they put in a smaller amount of money, he could pay them back, but not at the same time. Like, he would move around the money in such a way that it looked like he was always making profit and cooking the books and stuff like that. Now, ultimately, eventually, when the financial collapse happened, he could no longer do this because so many people were asking for their money back. He could no longer BS, and he said, well, I have no money. Now, he hid this money, okay? There's no way this man lost there's no way. This man had a downtown Manhattan apartment in a high-rise that he owned. A condo in a high-rise that he owned. He owned the condominium in an upscale Manhattan apartment. So, I mean, this man hid money because he knew this day was coming eventually. My point is this. If you find a business that's always going up, and never has any down days, up, never any down days, you know you're dealing with a bullshit company, okay? Because every company has a rough patch, okay? 20 years ago, Sony was untouchable. 25 years ago, Sony was untouchable. Even 18 years ago, Sony was untouchable. But slowly but surely, Sony hit their rough patch. But it's been going on for 15 years. So, I mean, it's about time they do something different. Nintendo has had ups and downs. That's the nature of business. they had 7 years of ups, kicking everyone's ass. Now they're having their down period. But their down period ain't like Sony and Microsoft's down. Well, Sony's down period, because Microsoft makes so much money in other shit that they can basically say fuck it and still make money, because they have a monopoly on OS systems. But I digress. So basically, this story, it only tells you a headline. It doesn't tell you the entire story. I will leave a link in the description field for the first one. The author of the story tries to cover his ass at the very end, saying, well, you know, this is, you know, they had the, but really it's meant to pump views and to spark an emotional response for people who are Nintendo fans. So before anyone does that, before anyone gets upset, just remember, big picture, it's about time. Now, of course, Nintendo has gone through its rough patch. It's made Nintendo has made its risks. The DS was relatively risky. The 3DS even more so. The Wii U was relatively risky. Not as risky as the Wii, but relatively risky. And, you know, shit has happened. You know, the 3DS is moderately successful right now. Compared to its predecessor, it's not ultra successful, but it's more successful than, say, its competitors, which it only has one competitor. It's more successful than the Vita, okay? I think the Vita has an install base of maybe, and I'm being very liberal with this estimation, maybe 12 million? Maybe an install base of 12 million? There should be like around 45 million 3DSs right now, install base. And it's only going to go up because Nintendo's going to release ultra powerful games for this system. And I think the 3DS has another 3 years of life left in it. And I know whatever Nintendo's going to make next is going to be backwards compatible, because it takes them a while to get started on production, and people need games to fill that gap. So it's going to be backwards compatible. So they're going to still be releasing games. So without further ado, on to the next topic. This next topic is going to be an easy one for me to basically explain to a lot of people. Recently, a lot of websites have been putting up that Nintendo fired 130 people at the German office, at one of their 2 German offices in Europe, for Nintendo Europe. Okay then, let's explain a little something, okay? Europe is Nintendo's weakest market. It's their weakest market, okay? Europe is not only their weakest market, but it's like even when Nintendo was on top of stuff with the Wii and the DS, Europe was still their weakest market. I mean, okay? So Europe has never been like really their thing. Even way back in the day with the SNES and the NES, Europe was their weakest market. That being said, here's what a lot of websites don't tell you. You know, as a clickbait article, people say Nintendo fired 130 people. Times must be hard at Nintendo. And times are tough at Nintendo, but not in the way you might think. But here's the kicker. Of that 130 people, an undisclosed number of people were moved from that location to the main location, which is now their main Nintendo of Europe headquarters. So really, it's not that they laid off 130 people. It's 130 people were lost at that location. Some of those people's jobs were integrated into the main office. That would make more sense. But, I mean, that doesn't grab headlines as much as saying Nintendo fired 130 people, which, you know, people are like, oh my god, Nintendo fired 130 people. God. I don't understand it. And here's the thing. These people aren't developers. They're the Nintendo of Europe people. Now, obviously, since the Nintendo of Europe is like the weakest market that they have, and the time, like, sales went up 666% in the UK, proving once and for all that Nintendo is the devil. Now that Iwata has really started to take a more active hand in running things in the foreign markets, aside from just Japan, that tells you something. So before I was interrupted by the phone, which I edited out, ha ha ha. You know, a lot of people don't seem to understand this. Okay. You know, a lot of these sites that are putting these things up get their money off of people coming to their site, hits on things. That's how they get their money. So it generates more hits to use a eye-catching thing. And I mean, let's be frank. Nintendo is a company that has been known for since its video game debut. They very rarely lose employees. Now, when I say employees, most people think of the public face of the company, the developers, but really they very rarely fire people. And, you know, they're trimming the fat in some places to grow other places. Like, okay, they're opening up a place in China. So a building, they're expanding their operations in China because it's an emerging market. They're expanding in America. They're expanding in Japan. So obviously in one of their weaker markets, they're not that, they're going to focus on their strengths in that weaker market while they can. And they've had some success. I mean, look how sales grew in the UK, which for them is amazing. Or how Nintendo of France was the only place that met its sales quotas. That tells you something. So even though they fired, they laid off these people, there's going to be there's room for improvement in that particular market. So I mean, my heart goes out to the people who were laid off. I know everyone wasn't laid off. A lot of people had jobs were integrated into the main office, which is now the official headquarters of Nintendo of Europe. So I mean, you know, don't listen to the BS. That's all I'm saying. The conclusion after the cut. Alright, in conclusion, this was just me doing real talk. I didn't curse much, I don't think. When you see me do a rant, it's more just me just slightly venting through a enhanced characterization. It's not the real me. I really don't curse really that much. Even when I'm ultra angry, I don't really curse that much. I do talk emphatically when I'm excited. Just me dealing with a real topic that seems to be pervading the gaming media gamosphere. You know, people talking, oh well, you know, Nintendo must be really hurting. No. Nintendo has a stubbed toe. Maybe it's a little infected. I'll tell you a company that's hurting. Sony. That company's hurting. Okay. So basically what I'm saying in conclusion is this. Before, you know, if you see a gaming headline, think in broader context, okay? Because the media wants to shape our perception. And you should never let another person shape your perception. Okay, the media wants us to think Nintendo's in dire straits, when it really isn't. It's growing in a contracting market, which is always difficult. It's easier to grow in an expanding market than a contracting market. Nintendo should have been doing all of their growing during the Wii era, not at the end of the Wii era, but during the Wii era, when they were making lots and lots of money. And it would have been easier to make those sacrifices then when they were making money. It would have been like, well, you know. But, I mean, you know, you have to remember Nintendo is uses a more conservative business model, okay? They take risks where they feel they can take risks, but on general, they have a very stable model of doing things. And people need to recognize that. And don't let the media shape your perception. Look at multiple articles and really apply your knowledge of, you know, things that make sense. I'm not saying you have to have a business degree, or you have to own a business, or you have to generally be a genius or anything. just use your common sense. Use your sense as a gamer, okay? To apply and apply how this is making people money, and then you'll understand what's going on. So, in conclusion, think for yourselves. Don't let the gaming media, especially paid gaming media, tell you what to think. Or the media in general, for that matter. Thank you, and before I end this, just want to let people know, today at 7:30 to 9, I'll be having a podcast with a few guests, focusing on just final pre-E3 podcast, just talking about what we're thinking, what we're looking forward to, what we're not looking forward to. And also, I will be hosting a tournament on Mario Kart 8. I'll leave the information in the description field about where that is and stuff like that. The information for it. So I'm not going to repeat myself again. So join us, or just me. Probably, I don't know.